Welcome back to Stress and Purpose in Life podcast. I'm your host, Stina, and today we're going to dive into a crucial and very important conversation as the intersection of technology and human development and sustainability. As biodiversity, also AI, and digitalization is something that is rapidly shaping our world right now, right? And we need to ensure that we also grow in the same direction. So to do that, we're going to explore an amazing inner development goals. I'm here joined by this brilliant Jakob Trollbäck, who is the visionary designer and communicator and the mindset behind the visual language of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, and also now the inner development goals. So I'm so grateful to have you here on the show, Jakob. Welcome.
Thank you very much. It's very nice to be here.
So you're literally the mind behind the UN SDGs and the Agenda 2030s language.
Yeah, right? That's right. It's funny because someone asked me a question about the origin of the goal 5 gender equality icon the other day, and I had to dive down because it's actually now 10 years since we did this. But yeah, we were very fortunate to be in a position where we got a request if we could help to take this it's sort of boring and academic framework and make it into something that everyone could understand and get engaged behind. So yeah.
And now all people all around the globe knows this Agenda 2030 and those goals, right? It's something that is really understood by many now, and it's amazing to talk to you, and you're the creator of this. So amazing to have you on the show, really.
Thank you. I always have to mention my partner Christina Rygg-Gressley, who did a huge majority of all the design behind it, and it's very much her visual vision that's behind it. So it was not only me. We were basically we were two people working on it. So
yeah, of course. Then anyway, it was you as half of the people in the show on this. So very, very nice to have you here. Can you start? Is there something that you want to start by introducing yourself more about for the audience? Because we know you for the sustainable development goals, right? But you have a very interesting background, I think. Also, can you explain how you came to become the person that you are, right? Based on this emphasis on sustainability.
Yeah, I had. I'm from Sweden. I was very briefly, I can say that I had a record store and I was a DJ in Stockholm, and then we started a club, and I was starting to do flyers, invitations for the club, and decided that I wanted to be a designer and moved to New York and got a job at a company working with motion graphics, meaning we did a lot of film titles, we did graphics for TV commercials and things like that. And when I started my own company in 99, I was getting a little bit tired of all the noise in marketing and advertising in America. I guess in the world, but in America in particular. So I came up with this motto, which was discard everything that means nothing. And that became sort of the beginning of a journey to find the true meaning behind things. And with that philosophy behind our design, we became quickly very good at doing branding for a variety of clients, and we worked with a lot of clients, mostly all of the American TV networks like HBO and CBS and things like that. And then we did a job for the BBC, a pretty big job. And that led to a connection that just by happenstance, a man, Richard Curtis, came to my office and he wanted help with the project. And we hit it off very well. And then he said at the end of the meeting, if you're interested, I have a crazy idea, which is the UN are going to release these goals in a year. And I think they're going to fail if we can't make them popular in some way. And do you want to help with that?
Oh, wow.
So that was like a fast forward through how I came to work with sustainability. And I think that also at that point in my life, we had worked with almost every client that I wanted. We had worked with Apple, which was a huge thing for me because I feel like my whole creative career I owe to the Macintosh, which was sort of my tool when I learned to design, and also that later when I started to write. So and I felt that I had sort of reached the top of, there were no more clients that I felt I wanted to, like I wasn't hungry for that, but to work with communication and make people find some kind of sense in very complex situations and find what's meaningful and what matters. That became the driving force and for me. So I worked with that for a while, and then because I realized I had to work with companies because the NGOs that contacted me, they didn't have any money, and I had to pay salaries. So I decided that I had to work with companies, and that Stockholm was a better place for that than America. So that's when I started the new division, and so that agency is now, I think, 8 years old, and we are only working with different variations of social and environmental sustainability.
Yeah, and that's what we're going to talk about today. I'm interested, before we start with that, we talked a lot about biodiversity and the changing environment that we live in, right? And how do you think we can connect to that with, how do we develop that with creating this sustainable mindset that we need? I mean, for those people that are not familiar with this inner development goals, can you briefly explain what it is and how it is connected to this changing environment that we live in today?
Yeah, I think that there's actually three different. We've been, after we had worked with the global goals, the SDGs, for a few years, and we thought that they were so clear and obvious, and we were just sitting back and waiting for change to happen, and it seemed like nothing happened really. So we started to think about what drives change, and it took all too long, I think, to understand a very simple fact that it's like, who's driving this car, and like that it all comes down to us. And we met with some great people. Eric Fernholm was the first connection, and we started to talk to him about our inner skills, how they are driving things forward, and what we need, because it's like with I think that there's a fundamental misunderstanding about Well, for a long time, it's been like, well, you're supposed to do what society says, and you're supposed to behave that way, and it doesn't matter what's happening on the inside. And if you disagree, there's probably something that's wrong with you. And instead, open up the way that we relate to ourselves and our thoughts. And I mean, if you would create a machine of some kind, you would really be interested in knowing exactly how it works. And of course, it's enormously interesting to think about our behavior and what's driving that. So we decided that we would use the connection of sort of driving forces, and we did a survey that in the end, I think about 2,000 people answered, and it was people who worked with leadership, with personal development, people working with mental health. There were like all kinds of people who answered a very simple question, which was, what skills, capacities, and qualities do we need as individuals and as a group to be able to reach the SDGs?
Yeah.
So that was the foundation for that. And then I think later when we started to work with it, we realized that it wasn't actually limited to like being driving forces for the SDGs. It was really what's running our lives.
Yeah, we have to change that mindset also to follow the sustainable development goals, right? So, and I understood that this IDGs emphasize a lot of self-awareness and compassion and collaboration, right? It has to do with those, it's like 5 principles of being, thinking, collaborating, and acting, right? So, and that is something holistic and it's something that we all have to do, think about, depending on, it doesn't have to do just to do with the sustainability mindset. It has to do with the way of life, but the way of life changes now rapidly based on this environment, the focus on sustainable development goals, right? So how do you see that help us to navigate in helping us to really create a better world and to change this way of living that we do?
I mean, I think there's so many interesting aspects, and I'm sure we're going to talk about biodiversity in a little bit, because that's the sort of the missing piece of the puzzle. But I think that one thing that I've been thinking about lately is, I remember many years ago when I learned about medicines, that all medicines that work only works because there's a receptor for them in the human body. So it's medicines are really a way. It's not a way to introduce something new to the body. It's a way to enhance the body's function, to enhance the way that these cells work, or these. So it's a system that we're part of, and we're using, the tools that we have in ourselves. And I think that when it comes to inner development, it's like we're walking around with all of these different capacities. And none of us are saying that the IDGs are complete or covering every aspect of it, because it is a framework under development. But all of a sudden, if you start to look at these different skills or capacities or qualities, you can see well, first of all, if you look at them, and there are 23, 24 of them now. There's actually 23. I'm saying 24 because there's definitely a new one coming in. But if you're looking at them at the list, I think you would be hard pressed to find a person who's not like, yep, that's great, I want all of those. So they're very they're very positive skills. And the thing is that we just need to practice them, right? You need to practice everything. You need to practice to have humility. You need to practice trust. You need to practice critical thinking. You need to practice, especially some people need to practice to have an open mindset. You can just tick off these skills and realize that this is something that we all have to work on. And if we don't do that, we're not going to be our best selves. We're just going to have all of these capacities that we're not gonna use, and that would be, it would be like I don't know. I feel like I want to make some parallel with when you realize that you you rented a house in the mountains for a week, and then when you got back, someone said, "How did you like the sauna?" And you like, it had a sauna. It's like there's so much in life, and there's so much within us that I think it would be cool if we would just be a little bit open to explore all of these different pathways that we can take, and all the ways that we can use them to like take charge over our relationships, and think about, like, what is it that happened when you get angry, or when someone pushes a button, or when someone makes you feel small, or when someone makes you feel great. What's actually happening there? And so I love it. I just love the inner development goals. I think that they're just a fantastic tool, and they have helped me so much.
Yeah, I think it's something that we humans really need now. I've also digged into it a little bit, and it's really amazing because it has a lot to do with the inner development that shape also the external environment, right? So, and if you truly master these skills, how do you think that will influence our way of living more sustainable, both in business and in private life?
I mean, obviously it would be great, but I also don't think that you can master them. I think that there are things that you can get better at. I think you can look at them and set up, an aspiration to become better at. If you look at them, you can clearly see very quickly what you don't have issues with. There may be skills that you feel like, yeah, I'm really good at complexity awareness, or I'm really good at having an open mind or something, but I'm not that good at trusting people. So I think that it can help us to think about what we could probably be better at. So
it's a good reminder to continue improvement, right? Because I have an idea about that as well, because I did a pillar theory, which was also 8 kind of pillars of inner development, and it also quite resonates with this, because you are not good at everything. It's like a life compass. You can give a grade to, okay, today I'm a 5 but tomorrow I can be 4, and it's really it's a continuous improvement, and it's really good to have some kind of framework for that also resonate with the living a sustainable life. So I really I admire that, and I think it's so important both in private life and in business that people use this. And I understood that the people are already, you have some kind of method for this, that you have it implemented also in businesses or in your own business. You said something about that earlier, that you have some kind of way of working with it yourself.
Well,
share.
In the beginning, before I knew all of the skills by heart, I always had them open in a document, and whenever I was in a situation that wasn't familiar with me, or if I had to write a difficult email to a client or something, I wrote the email and then I looked at it and I was like, okay, do I have the right amount of humility here? Do I show appreciation? Do I like, how can I frame this in a way? And it's not framing things in a way that, oh, I will get things my way. It's framing things so the message goes through. And I think that we all, well, most of us have, also in relationships with family and friends, we have people that we can't really get through to. And it's really good to see that, okay, what would happen if you know, if I showed more empathy, if I had more compassion, or how can I build presence in this situation? Like whatever it is that's missing. And I think that I know that we're probably getting off topic a little bit here, but I feel like most conflicts between people, I mean, there are conflicts between people that can go on for a lifetime. And there are people, they can be family members that try and they always have the same result, but they always try in the same way. And it's like, you know, that you're pushing each other's buttons. And then you just have to ask yourself, what would it be like if you think that another person did you wrong, to just say, okay, I'm going to just take a deep breath and start to thinking about what caused this situation, what made this person behave that way. So it's a map of just understanding why we react the way we do, anyway, I love it.
Yeah. But how about that relation with the inner development goals, and we go to talk about biodiversity now. How do you see the relationship between those two?
Yeah,
How
that has
do they
been
influence each other?
Yeah, that has been a huge journey for me, because
Yeah.
when we did the SDGs, obviously goal 14 and 15 are about biodiversity, life below water and life on land. So I knew that biodiversity was important, but also I'm a city person. I lived in New York for 30 years, and yeah, we went out to the beach in the summers, but when I grew up in Sweden, I lived in a suburb, and you were never really that close to nature, and you were never really dependent on nature. So for me, it had been a little bit like, yeah, I guess it's good that we have it, right? And then about 2 years ago, when we started to work with the Kunming Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework, because it was just released, and I looked at it and I said, oh man, this needs a makeover. So I wrote some emails and made some phone calls and got in touch with the right people. And we had a meeting, and I said, well, the SDGs were pretty successful. Can we do something similar with the biodiversity framework? And they were very happy, and we started to work on that. And that has been a huge journey for me, because it's like the more you're working on it, you're making the most important observation is that we are biodiversity. And you know, it's incredible that we have distanced ourselves so much from biodiversity. So it seems like we've forgotten that this planet, this nature, it's our birthplace. It's our you know, our mother, our fathers. It's like it's all in biodiversity. And indigenous peoples and local communities, they have a much tighter connection, and they understand where we're from. And it's, when you're just are plopped down at a hospital in a city and you grow up in a city, you're not necessarily going to get that connection, and it's not going to be an obvious part of your life that we're not, first, that you are biodiversity. And the second thing is that we're not the masters of this. We're just the latest, the latest child of biodiversity. And we may be amazing. And I think human beings are just completely incredible. But we also have a responsibility, because nature isn't there for us. It's we're part of it. And nature, human beings have things that they do in ecosystems that are beneficial for ecosystems. But if we disappeared, everything would go on as usual, mostly,
Yeah.
or better in this, today.
Yeah.
So the humility that comes with realizing that, oh, these are not our plants. And I think that also a lot came when I started to read Robin Wall Kimmerer. She has a fantastic, beautiful book called Braiding Sweetgrass. And she's talking a lot about how we have objectified nature. But nature is something that's alive, it's not objects. And we have on our little biodiversity plan book that we've done,
Yeah.
there's a short quote from her that I would love to read.
Yeah,
Which,
absolutely. Please do.
as human beings, we are part of the web of life, not its masters. Our role is to care for the diversity of life forms on Earth, to be in relationships with them, and to recognize their value beyond our use.
That's beautiful.
And
That's
there's
so
so much
important.
love in it, right?
The respect to the nature.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
so important. Yeah. Wonderful.
So
So how do you? Yeah. Sorry.
that
Go
then
on.
connect directly to the being category, or the being dimension of the inner development goals, because we're talking about an inner compass. We're talking about
Yeah.
integrity, authenticity. We're talking about openness, learning mindset, which is, nature has always been, biodiversity has always been a laboratorium for experiments and trying like a creative laboratory.
Yeah.
All evolution is just built on, like, let's try this. Well, that didn't work. Let's try this. Like, it's also creative. And our being dimension is, of course, the fact that we're part of this.
Yeah.
And so that has been, I think, a lot about this. And I think that there's more and more awareness. There are the people who, the movement of touching grass, like, make sure that you can touch grass every day. And I think
Yeah.
it's
Wonderful.
just about finding environment where we feel good.
Yeah. And how do you see I mean, both, if we go on to talking about, I'm not going to dig deep into this, but just we are standing against paradigm shift, right? And this has to also do with AI and all the disconnected to nature, things that we get disconnected by, right? And how do you see then that these inner development goals can help us in that ever-changing environment that has to do with digitalization, and also is it vice versa from biodiversity, because that's something to do with nature, and AI and digitalization keeps us somewhat away from that. How do you see the inner development goals having an impact there?
Yeah, I think that, the most interesting thing with AI is, we sort of know what it is, but we don't know what's going to happen.
No.
And I think that there are many parts of, because I started my life as a tech nerd, so I love all of these, um, all of the evolution in technology. Um, I think that I think we need to, in some way, think about what is AI and what is us. Because when you're talking about digitization, I mean, I think that we can say in general that that's a good thing. Um, but at the same time, if the most prominent way that we're using digital media is doom scrolling and being depressed and not getting out of bed, then you have two different sides of it. And AI, I mean, I use AI every day. I use it when I write, when I do research, and to me, it's a gift. It's just amazing what it can do. And then I'm thinking that, okay, there are now you can just tell AI, I want the website, and they make a website. You can say, I want a hit song, and they make a hit song. And that's when I'm starting to think like, okay, what is the purpose of human beings in this?
Yeah.
Because, I mean, fortunately, AI is not very good at knowing what's good. When we worked on the biodiversity framework, we had to make 23 symbols, and there were one symbol that we were so stuck on, and I was like, okay, I'm going to see what AI can do. And I think I was sitting and prompting that AI for about 2-3 hours. And everything that came out was banal, ugly, and didn't have any inspiration. It hadn't made any of the connections that make good design, good symbols wonderful, right? Because it's always about making a leap, and coming up with an angle that excites people.
Yeah.
And that, I mean, maybe AI is going to become good at, I mean, it's clearly going to become better at knowing what's good. But then the question is like, I don't know. I feel like there's so many dimensions of AI that the most positive interpretation I could think about is that when I'm looking at the work that we've done with the SDGs, with the Inner Development Goals, and with biodiversity, the amazing thing is that now finally I'm starting to I have a certain amount of OCD, and I'm starting to feel like, oh, I can see they fit together. This is a puzzle. We're putting the pieces in the right place. And what it is more than anything is an equation where you're going for the most elegant solutions. That's what biodiversity has done for 3.5 billion years. And, when humans get really into something, we create really elegant solutions, elegant and beautiful solutions. It may be design, or it may be equations, or it may be machines, or whatever it is. And we bumble around a little bit, but, there's one point where this may be a bad example, but it's not exciting to buy a new iPhone anymore because it's good. It's like, for the period of time that we're living, like, but going from an iPhone 15 to 16, that's like, okay, whatever. Because they've just refined this product. So it's a miracle. And then what do? I mean, there's going to be new technology, and so I'm not saying that evolution stops there, but there are these plateaus of just elegance. So getting back to I think that AI should also have the ability to see the mathematics about it, to see, well, this doesn't work because I have access to all of these sources, all of this information. And the result of this is that if you do it this way, it's a solid no because you blow up the planet or whatever it is. And I think that also that's why, all of these hopeless, white men, Elon Musk and, Mark Zuckerberg and all of these pathetic, anyway, that
We don't go into
they,
politics, but I understand what you're
I'm
coming
not
from.
talking about their
Yeah.
politics. I'm just
No.
talking about the intelligence of not seeing things because it is mathematics. And the thing is that when they're like all of a sudden, oh, AI has become woke, it's not woke. It's just saying that if you do this thing, there will be a problem. They're saying if we keep burning fossil fuel, the planet is going to be not so much fun to live at.
No.
And that's not a political point of view. And that's not being woke. That's not being anything other than you're being scientific. You're looking at the science and then you're seeing what that goes to.
Yeah.
So I think that AI can help us in this because the wonder of AI is also what is a little bit scary with AI is that we don't know how it does it. We just told AI, go and learn this, go and figure this out, like you do with children. You can figure it out. And it did. And no one can go in and I mean, people can change the prompts and change the parameters, but no one can go in and say, no, because it's what's happening in this black box of AI. And to me, that is where I'm putting my hope to, that it actually are going to find solutions that make sense mathematically. And biodiversity is nothing but the planet's oldest equation. So I want to marry them in some way and then hope that they're not getting abused by, people who wants to make money.
No, and I see that that resonates so with the importance of the inner development goals, because if you develop yourself as a human being and you become more, good for the planet, of course, the AI and the biodiversity, it gets a positive development because of it. But if you don't have that inner development goals to lean on, then you perhaps get lost in that world because it's a rapid technology, it's a rapid development, and you have to be grounded, right? So what is the correlation there, do you think? How do you think this inner development goals will impact this development?
Yeah, I think that the awareness of the inner development goals, I mean, it's big. I mean, we have 700 hubs in countries all over the world, and we have, I mean, so many tens of thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people but I don't think that it has had enough impact in media and society for it to be something that becomes part of the zeitgeist of AI. It's like, but it is part of the zeitgeist in society, I think, because I mean, we were talking about the world today a while ago, and I said, listen, I mean, I'm I was a DJ. I've been at clubs and parties like all my life. And I know you get a terrible hungover after it. And I was thinking that, I mean, Earth, a very cool place, but if you look at the universe, we're like less than nothing. Our, it's just, no one would care. So I was just thinking, so what if we destroy this planet? What if we like ruin biodiversity and make it so obviously we're not going to have anything to eat, and then we causing climate change, so it's going to be miserable to live anywhere. And I was like, well, good, then maybe, and then I realized, but at a party you're having a good time, right? And right now we're ruining the climate and we're destroying biodiversity and everyone's miserable. So this is, of course, the big allure of the inner development goals, because something's got to happen.
Yeah. Somebody told me, they said like a stressed planet, a stressed human. We are stressed out by the situation, and we have to do something about that. I will, if we look at the future and the bigger picture now, you're talking about the universe as a bigger picture, but if we imagine like a world where AI and biodiversity and inner development goals are fully aligned, and it's like harmony, how would that look? What would the world look like if it was aligned with each other, do you think?
I mean,
it's a big question, but
I think it would be a wonderful world. I think that there are some forces in humankind that, I mean, we have these forces of that comes from our ancestry, our survival instincts, that are causing us significant problems today. Because if you have, I'm just thinking about United States and China. I'm like, okay, you share the same problems. Why don't you sit down and figure out how to solve this? Figure out how trade is going to work. Figure out how this is going to be beneficial for everyone. But instead, they're fighting with each other.
yeah.
And they're fighting, and I understand that you will fight for survival when there's scarcity, but there's such abundance, and that we can't stop fighting when there's abundance. Obviously, there's not abundance in the whole world, but if we're talking about these, if we talk about the global north, or like, and that to me is just a tragedy, that we have societies, we have production methods, we have so much technology, so we basically could have a good time. We wouldn't have to worry about housing and food and things like that. But instead, we're just because there's always people, mostly men, who just wants it all. They just want to win, and it's like, you just won. Your ancestors didn't survive. They died when they were 18 or 23, or like, you're 65. You've survived. Why don't you enjoy this? Why do you have to keep on pretending like you have to win over what? Win over the planet now. So I think that however well you would align these frameworks, there's got to be an inner change. And in that inner change, we need to look at the world and ask ourselves, what created the beauty? What created the love? And we're talking about the limbic system and the frontal cortex, that created music, that created art, that created love, that created so much. Then we have this little engine of survival that is just, I want more, 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 more. I'm worried about my survival. Well, you don't have to worry about your survival,
No.
So I think that until we come to terms with this split operational directives, which is, we've everything that we have created, that mankind have created, we've created because we work together and we build trust and we have empathy and love. That's like the source for the civilization. That's why we can live good lives. And then we have this destructive force that wants to build nuclear weapons. It's like, and that is just a part of, I don't know, maybe Ozempic is gonna take care of that. I hope so, because it seems like it's like dampening a lot of our primitive needs and wants. But that's another story.
Yeah, but I agree totally with you, because that's the bigger picture, and the love that you're talking about is lost somewhere when you're in the decision making post. I think it has to do some kind of mind shift there in around humanity and also business leaders. Do you have some kind of advice? I mean, you're talking now about love and how you can stay connected to nature and also use these inner development goals in an ever-changing environment, and not get scared and flee for lions, right? As we did before. But what do you think about, what are your do you have some advice that you can give some of the leaders in the world that is based on inner development goals, and how they can apply them and to make us more better people, more positive and more loving people?
I mean, when the framework started to take shape, I said, oh, this should be like the entry test for all world leaders, all politicians. We should just elect people who have all of these skills, who have long-term thinking, who have complexity awareness, who have, humility and empathy, and have co-creation skills, have inclusive mindsets, intercultural competences. It's like the list is just like, how good it would be.
Oh my God, the world would be a very loving place to live on then.
Yeah, but I mean, that's not gonna happen. The problem is that the sad reality is that the people who are only interested in power are the ones that get power. And we can talk about, different peace movements and the Dalai Lama and Gandhi and very strong movements, but Martin Luther King, well, we can shoot him. I mean, that's, there's we're playing in a game and against forces that I don't really know. But I can say that one thing that I saw a preview of a documentary that's called Confessions of a Swedish Man. And it's about a man who is confronting this whole male sort of testosterone driving anti-feminist movement. And the thing that I think that was the most interesting thing was that in the interview after the screening, he said that, because the question was, so you're sitting there and you're opening up to people who are extreme right, who are, who doesn't trust women, who are, very very negative forces and very like masculine, and he himself his movie before this was about feminism, so
Oh,
he's like he's clearly not like on that side. And
no.
what he said was that he found that when they sat down in these circles and opened up, when they all started to talk about their childhood, that's when they connected. And I think that we all have not the same trauma, but we all have most of us have experienced similar trauma in our lives in growing up, and that has shaped us in different ways. And our reactions to these stressful traumatic situations can be vastly different depending on who we are, our personality, but I think even more about the circumstances that we grew up in. If we grew up in a loving, supporting family, or in a family where your father was beating the shit out of your mother for dinner every day. I mean, it's like, but the trauma of just being a human being. I mean, we all have traumas, and if we can connect with that side, if we can just dare to be naked there and say, I don't know, I'm lost. Do you have an idea how I can get out of this? If we start doing that, I think that that's the best way to like promote real solutions and remove the sledgehammer from the from the conversation.
Yeah. I mean, we get tougher the older we get. It's a tough environment to live in, and then being vulnerable is very important. I agree with you, and I can imagine if you see the person from behind the mask, the roles that you have, then you get to the core, and then you get open. Then you open yourself to being more loving. I think, and I agree totally with that.
Yeah.
Is there something more that you would like to find in words for the viewers to reflect on regarding this? With so much important wisdom that we have regarding this subject, that we can talk for hours. And is there something more that you would like to add that we haven't?
Yeah, probably, but I can't really figure out what I can just say that for me, I've found a lot of comfort in understanding how understanding the universe and the physical world, and I was always annoyed when I lived in America when someone said everything happens for a reason. And it could be a horrible thing that had happened. Someone had been left, or maybe even when someone died, some would say like, well, everything happens for a reason, which is, when we're back in the old time of believing that there's a God that controls everything that happens here. And I was so upset by this in some situation. And then I realized I could just move the words around a little bit. It's not that everything happens for a reason. There's a reason why everything happens. And if you start looking for the reason why everything happens, then your life becomes so interesting. And if you can dare to turn that onto yourself also, and you can be in a conversation and all of a sudden you get really irritated or frustrated, or maybe even raising your voice or whatever. And then afterwards to sit down and think, what happened there? Why was what triggered me? I mean, it's so, the curiosity that you can have around your own behaviors, I think is just immense. And I kind of learned that from a friend I had in America many years ago. She said something, and I or did something. I don't remember. I think she said something, and I told her. I was pretty harsh on her. I was like, "You can't say that, and you can't like." And I thought that she would defend herself, and she said, "Oh, that's interesting that you think that." And I was just like, I wasn't expecting that response. And she said, "Yeah, I'm interested in knowing what's happening in my head and what's happening in your head. Why did this situation come up?" And I was like, that is kick-ass. That so look for just be curious. And then I just realized that I do actually have one last thing that I want to say.
Yeah, please do. This was a great reminder for people what you just said about having your self-reflection.
Yeah.
Okay, go on, please.
Yeah. So my last thing I would say is that I think that sometimes Einstein has been quoted as the one saying that all decisions we make in life depends just on one question. It's not completely verified if he said it, but it's anyway. And the only question is if we believe that we live in a friendly or an unfriendly universe. And, you know, if you're living in a friendly universe, then you build schools. And if you live in an unfriendly universe, you build prisons. If you're in a friendly universe, you build hospitals, you build parks. In an unfriendly universe, you build military and, you know. And I think that that's a very cool thing to think about, very important thing to think about. But then I've had two thoughts of it. And the first thought was, of course, we live in a friendly universe because biodiversity is a gift to us. It's, you know, it's just out there creating positive values all the time, all the food, all the material, all the beautiful sunsets, of course, this is a good world. So that was the first, like, okay, I think I've solved that equation. And then my last insight, and I think that this is where I'm going with this, is that it's actually not right that it's predetermined if the universe is friendly or unfriendly. The truth about the universe is that it becomes what we think it is. So if you think the universe is friendly, what do? You trust people. You have conversations. You're starting to build connections. You're saying, of course you can borrow this. Or can you keep an eye on my bag while I'm going a block away? Or it doesn't matter what it is. And building trust should be, you know, the most important thing that we can do.